Hey guys, before we start, a quick shout out to Alpha Dog Nutrition for sponsoring this podcast. Alpha Dog products are now available at dusupply.com, and you can use code ALPHADOG15 at checkout for 15% off and a credit for free shipping to try it yourself. Now let's get you to your podcast. This is going to be the last one I record before taking off.
Wow.
Kind of crazy.
It is crazy, and it's exciting. And it's just like anything else. I guess it's like when the kid goes off to college or whatever. You know, you have mixed emotions.
Right.
Definitely you want to get them off the grocery bill, but then the other bills start coming in. But you want them to have a good life and be successful and enjoy life. But at the same time, you know, you got that feeling that,
right?
Gee, you know, kind of hate to see the nest be empty. But so our nest is going to be empty if you and Danny and the kids fly away on us here.
Yeah, it's it's been interesting. You know, I mean, it is a flood of emotions for sure, especially like, and this is going to air on my last day. It just happened to line up that way. And I was just thinking back, like from the project from the beginning, and even like going before the W podcast, you know, you and I had already known each other for a while, you know?
Yeah.
And just thinking of everybody involved in the whole project and how tight most of us have really became over the years. And it's kind of weird, man. Like to think back, episode 1, and now you're getting pretty close to like 2 million downloads accumulatively between
Isn't
all
that
of
crazy?
us. Yeah, in 4 years. You know, I guess maybe it's 5. I think we started it in 2020 in April. So not quite 5 years. But it kind of grew into something big. And it was all because everybody just kind of came together for a general purpose. That rising tide raises all ships. I mean, everybody that was on our team, you know, it's helped us all, I think. And it's given you a final landing place, which was awesome. Because you did your bouncing around too. And when you came here, I knew it was going to be big.
Yeah. Well, you guys just came out of the blue, like say out of left field there, and said, "Hey, you want to come on here?" And I'm thinking, well, you guys are all out there in the West and chasing mountain lions, and of course I knew about the bear part, but nothing about the bobcats and lynx and all the foxes and all the stuff that you guys do out there, where my whole career basically is based around those tree pandas.
Ding old coodongs.
Yeah. But no, it was great, and it really became family. You know, it became family to me, and I think you and Danny have kind of perpetuated that a lot by you know, the times that we've been able to spend out at the events like Grand American, for instance, or Autumn Oaks, and sharing some of the family. We we got the queen, the princess.
Yeah, the princess.
Yeah,
Taylor. I know she's getting so big too, Steve. You'd be oogly googly over her. Maybe.
Oh, I guarantee you, she'd be on my knee every opportunity. But you know, we were at the Grand American, and we had the Airbnb that you guys had arranged, and to get to the place in the dark, and there's a whole pile of bottled water, food of every kind, all the stuff that Danny's arranged for us. And I said, you know, I like these people. They're good folks.
Just keep Steve fed.
Yeah. And we've been able to see, the family grow a little bit. Heath and I go back so far, even though he does roast me when he gets an opportunity.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
going to get him back, though. But, yeah, and I feel like I know Brett. I'd love to get out there on a mule and go riding with him sometime. I have done a little bit of horseback hunting for bear in New Mexico. So,
Yeah.
but the whole thing is just kind of really, it's cool. And I'm happy that I guess I'm basically the only coon hunter that's really trying to put material out there through the DU network. But I'll take that. I'll be the redheaded, no offense, stepchild.
No pun intended. Well, I'll tell you, for being the redheaded stepchild, I mean, you have consistently been top performing podcasts. I mean, week after week after week.
Hey, I've noticed these other guys. I mean, they're beating me up pretty good. I look at the numbers here lately, and
it's been jumping a little bit.
I'm kind of like a blue tick, I guess, in the race. I start off a little slow, but by the end of the 7th day,
yeah,
I'm
right.
up there. I finally managed sometimes to take the lead, but no, that's gratifying to me to see that all the guys, all their shows are doing. Mm-hmm. We're all doing about the same, really, nowadays.
It is. When you first came on, that was a big eye opener. Just how am I going to say this? I guess there's a lot of people that aren't aware how many coon hunters there are out there.
Right.
And how actively involved in the sport, to whatever degree that is, whether they're the ones that are, making coffee at the club hunt, or they're a professional handler, or they're a breeder, or just an enthusiast. There's a ton of coon hunters out there, and they follow and they get engaged. It's like everybody on this platform I talk to, they all are getting a lot of engagement. People reaching out through Facebook or Messenger or the YouTube videos. They're commenting on those. The audience that you guys have all captivated is something like on my end of this podcast, I've just watched and watched and watched. And as like, let's say in the dog world, I think that there are things that work with dog-related businesses or ventures or projects like this, right? This is just we're not paying the bills, really. It's just here. It's a resource and a camaraderie. I'm going to lose my train of thought
I've never figured out how to get rich in the dog world. Okay.
You can't. You're not going to get rich doing it, but your engagement with people and the amount of like what you would call a conversion, right? Like somebody hears your podcast. I just talked to a guy 2 days ago. He has listened to every one of your podcasts. I had a guy say, I've literally listened to every podcast on the W platform, period.
Wow.
Because it's like, I've had people tell me a lot over the years, oh, that won't work in business when I was in Plumtree. And it's like, well, it worked out pretty good. This is where I'm at today. It got me here with W. I mean, it was a big working interview, and it's just because the world says it don't work doesn't mean it doesn't work. And the Hound guys, gosh, I swear your guys' following is pretty big. And I hear about it all the time.
Well, with our dear friend Buddy, and one conversation that we had early on, and I told him, Buddy, there is a huge market out here that you could be tapping, man. Mm-hmm. Of course, I know W was birthed in the West and came on the stage, man, really looking good with the graphics and the logos and all the stuff. I said, man, these guys are serious, but at the same time, I knew that there was a tremendous amount of business out there. Mm-hmm. And, Garmin was pretty smart to begin with. Because when I went to them to try to get them to come aboard as a sponsor for coonhound events, I had the idea that they wanted to sell Nuvies, the little
Oh yeah.
dashboard or windshield GPS units, map programs. What was that other one? TomTom, I think, was a
Yeah.
competitor. And I said, everybody's running back and forth across the country in these motorhomes, going to all these thousands of dog shows and all this. They all need one of those on the dash. And they go, no, 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 no. We got that market conquered.
Right.
We're number one in that market. We're all about new developments, and we want to go after this market. And I said, well, good for you. I'm glad you do. And
I'm glad they did.
And I'm glad they did too. Awesome. But yeah, I get to rambling, man. I go down so many rabbit paths anymore. It's crazy. But yeah, this business, I have been so fortunate to be somebody that actually made a living. I mean, my sole means of support since 1983 was coon hounds.
Isn't that wild?
So, bought homes on those salaries, educated my son on those salaries, bought vehicles on those salaries, drove way too many miles and spent too many nights in motels on those salaries. But I'm thankful, but people would ask me, what do you do? And I'd say, well, I kind of have a one-of-a-kind job, and explain to them what I did. But I was so fortunate, Jason. You and I both are people of faith, and we know, every good and perfect gift comes from above. I believe that. And
Absolutely.
That was a gift that God gave me, was the ability to communicate with these hunters, to be raised in the home of a houndsman, to be, just bug-eyed crazy over it from the time I was little, and just, stuck with it. And the opportunities came to me that really weren't my doing, I don't think. I mean, yeah, I tried to do a good job wherever I was, but, I was thankful I never had to go look for a job. I worked for 3 different registries, and they all came and asked me if I wanted to come to work. I said, what?
You're doing something right.
That can only be from the man upstairs, in my way of thinking. But
agree.
Yeah, it's a tough market, to try to make a living at it. And there's been a lot of them come and go. Mm-hmm. And I used to tell people, they say, I'm going to start a new registry. I'm going to start a new coonhound registry. That's a way to go, man. I said, well, the first thing you got to have is a great big pile of money. Because you're going to make a little bitty pile of money out of it before you're done.
No kidding.
Yeah.
But that's part of, like you are a common point of conversation in our house. Obviously, like Danny and I would think very highly of you and Ella, and we've done a lot of work with you.
For sure.
So, we were talking about you the other night and just how you have done such a great job being, staying relevant. I don't want that to sound like a bad thing, but like you have brought knowledge and information, or facilitated things that generations have enjoyed from your time, like building the coonhound programs to even now influencing people and having your guests and your own thoughts on things. You've impacted the thoughts of a lot of people over your years. And there is not another Steve Fielder out there. I'm not trying to give you a big head, but I joke around. It's like going anywhere with Steve is like Richard Petty walking through the pits. Like you can't get away from the mob. But there's a reason you've been able to do that. And I think it's just because it's your heart to be involved with these dogs and these people in any way possible, because there's a short list of people who have been as supportive as you have with me in my personal life here at W on the platform, as far as even just us and our private chats and, having some fellowship at times. It's been a really humbling thing for me because, when Steve Fielder's name before you ever meet him, and then you build a really great relationship on top of that, it's been pretty awesome. I'm real thankful. And I think there's
Jason,
a lot of listeners.
That's very kind of you. And, I think about so many times that I would walk on a fairgrounds, maybe park my car coming to an event like Autumn Oaks, Grand American, Winter Classic, World Hunt, American Heritage Hunt, Heartland Classic, whatever, big events. And I'd walk on that grounds and I'd walk down through the barns and I'd walk it. And I'd meet somebody and I'd, nod at them or so. And I just always felt like I was one of those guys that just parked his truck and he's just walking and looking around and seeing. I never, ever, and I thank God for this, I never, ever thought, here I am, guys, I'm the boss here. I'm the one that's running this project. I'm the one that says where the casts go and what time they go and when they have to get back. And I'm the one that plans the qualifying events and all these things. I don't say that even now to be bragging about. I never had that attitude, not once. I can say with a firm resolve that I never did. I always just felt like these were my people, the people I'd love to be with, the people I'd love to talk to. And it's even like now, Nubbin and I, we didn't get to go to Winter Classic this year because of some conflicts and all, but
yeah, he went fishing, right? The conflict. He chose fishing over coon hunting.
Yeah, I think he did. He went with his family to a lake or something. I'm like, what? But anyway, no. But the point is, we're all the same. We are, the old saying, we all put our britches on one leg at a time. Mm-hmm. I always enjoyed trying to see how I could make something better. They say we men get in trouble with our relationships with our wives because we're fix-it men. They say there's a problem. Well, I can fix that. I'll fix it. Let's fix it and move on. Well, that doesn't always work. I know, but I've always felt that way, and this thought comes to me a lot as I'm older now. I know I'm washed up. I know I'm not running anything anymore except the dishwasher occasionally, and I have to ask Ella if it's okay to run the dishwasher because she tells me, well, you got to run it at certain times, prime times to run it and all this. I don't know. She has all this organization that's for
Hey, there's a reason for it. Whether you understand that reason or not, right. You just, yes, ma'am, move on.
Yeah. But, I'm tempted at times, especially with social media. It's so easy. You can throw anything up there in an instant of time. Mm-hmm. And to say, well, I did this back in the day, or I did that back in the day. I wouldn't have done it that way myself. This is the way I would do it. Yeah. I was telling Elle the other day, we're talking about the country and some of the changes that are being made and everything else. And I said, well, sometime when we got time just to talk, I'll tell you how I would have done it. I mean, after all, I'm the same age as Trump.
Yeah, right? Steve
but anyway, I have those temptations at times to say, because I'm, human nature, I'm proud of what was accomplished, but I don't have to go around crowing about it, and then I had so much help. I mean, so many great people, You know, and when I say help, not only the ones that were on salary or on that worked for the company. To me, that
Right.
help was that guy that steps up from that little club down in DuPont, Indiana, and says, "Steve, I'll get you 10 judges. You can count on me."
Yeah.
That's the guy.
It's the
That right
solid
there is
people.
the bedrock. You know, that's what anything that I was able to do depended on a lot of people just like that, you know. So if you're out there in the club and you're listening to this, we appreciate you. If the only thing you
Absolutely.
do is when it's ready to turn out the lights is you sweep the floor and put a new bag in the trash can, we appreciate you because you are the foundation, you know, of everything else. And sometimes I wonder, you know, now, and God bless them. I'm proud of what Josh Michaelis and Joy and those people
Oh
are
yeah.
doing to put the sport out there on the. I can sit in my easy chair and watch the Joy Super Hunt. You know, I haven't
Right?
watched this last one yet, but I'm going to. But I'm really happy for all those people and what's happening. But I sometimes wonder if we're focusing too much on the winners and not enough about the guys that are in the pit crew, the guys that are changing the tires, and
I
the
get
gas
that.
can guy, you know. And but those were always the people that I wanted to encourage and you know, and to keep this sport going. And it pains me at my age to see that it's not doing as well as it did at one time. But, you know, without being a Debbie Downer here, I mean, we've still got a lot of people out there that
So
love to
many.
follow a hound. A lot of
And the coon hunting world, especially. I mean, well, so like going to these events here has been really great going with you to a bunch of them. You know, like Autumn Oaks, we got the house with Ben, and that was a great time too.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, you've introduced me to so many people, and I've just, you know, when you're sitting at Autumn Oaks and all of a sudden here's, you know, a customer from Canada that I've dealt with forever, and a customer from Utah, and a customer from Florida, and, you know, guys that you've talked to so many times over the years, it's this calm and ground. But you start meeting these people, they're teachers, right? They're electricians, they're plumbers, they're
all
walks of life. They're all involved in the sport to a degree. And I feel like in the shift in today's society, like obviously hounds have been a big thing, you know, with Colorado fighting their fight and they're attacking everywhere.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as bad publicity, except when there is. Don't take that the wrong way. Keep your videos to yourself. But, you know, it's it's a big thing that, you know, we are being talked about in each podcast, each article, each video. All of that is just building our credibility that has lasted so long through so many generations and has been passed down. It's really kind of crazy to think, like, it's almost kind of like a revelation. Like, the coon hunters out there are very receptive to what we do out here, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Especially, like, most of them are fans of Brett Vaughn. Let me tell you, all them coon hunters love listening to Brett or watching his videos on his mules. There's like this huge innate draw to his lifestyle from the coon hunting world.
Because I think every kid grows up wanting to be a cowboy, right? I mean, you're out west, you got the cowboy hat, you may not have a horse, but you got a mule, and you're riding into some beautiful country that, like, you only time you ever saw that before is watching old episodes of the Lone Ranger or whatever.
No, that's the
he's
truth.
He's a jewel, man. He's a national treasure. That guy.
I joke around with Danny, and this is where I had to make a realization. This was a few years ago. You know, I really started thinking about it because as you get older, you know, I'm almost 40, and you start realizing, okay, you're getting you're on the last half of being able to do what you really want to do the way you want to do it. It is hitting a point where your sacrifices and your time in the woods are not necessarily because you got to deal with, a baby at home or this or that. You're dealing with it because you just can't walk into that country anymore, or you got to wait for daylight because you sure ain't walking in that nasty stuff in the dark for us, and you just kind of got to realize when I grew up, elk hunting was the big thing. In my family, elk hunting was that was a magical place. You go to elk camp, you spend 10, 14 days out in the woods, and it was the greatest thing for a young boy. And to me, that just kind of set the tone. I wanted that adventure. I wanted experience. And that's how I'm trying to raise my kids. And Danny has a very similar mindset. We want experience, not things. Yeah. Because nobody can take your experiences away. Right. So with that, you think about, you don't have to always be horseback in the eagle caps to be hunting elk. You can do it on a quick 4-day trip with a kid driving around in the seat. You've got to adapt to it, but you can make it happen. And it's just, you think about all these guys that are involved, even at, 80, 90 years old. I mean, I've got customers that are still dang near 90, and they're still in the truck helping out, running radios, doing this and that. I just talked with a customer this morning about that. It is such a village, that we have within Houndsman. And that's a big deal.
It is. And it swings both ways. I'm out east here. And all these years, mainly working in the Midwest and down in the South, east of the Mississippi, mostly. Through networking, through contacts, through magazines and the registry and all, I meet people like Dean Carroll, who invites me out to coon hunt in Wyoming along the Bighorn River, which translates into going fly fishing on some of the most beautiful streams and catching my personal best brown trout. Through networking, Dean came out to, Dean and I don't agree on politics, okay? But we get that out of the way when we're together right off the bat. Then
that's the way to do it.
But, who's the guy that wrote General Washburn? Gary Washburn became a writer for us at UKC, a big game article, invited me out to go horseback bear hunting in New Mexico in the Capitans. Had a wonderful time.
Was that the sheep herders cabin? Didn't you guys
That's
stay
where we stayed, in an old sheep herder's cabin. And there was a guy named Hare. I can't think of his boy's name is Ty, and he's a guide, I think. But he contacted me later after I'd written something about that and said, I know that cabin really well. I spent a lot of summers in that cabin.
Isn't that small world?
Yeah, but see, that I was able to be exposed to a lot of that. I went to White Mountain Apache with Tom David out of Albuquerque through the Plot Dogs. And got to spend some wonderful times out there bear hunting with Tom, and these kind of things. And so, if it weren't for these Western hunters, I wouldn't have been able to experience this. Yeah. And then, of course, those guys I always enjoyed, especially at Plot Days, seeing people like Olin Greer, who was a lion hunter. There needs to be more written about him. He was a Plot Dog guy, I believe, from Idaho or Utah. I could be wrong on that. But anyway, seeing those guys come out east to Plot Days and see how we do things over there and see their eyes get big at all the dogs that they see and all that thing. But it's one big community, and you guys at W have promoted that whole community, and by allowing me to have gone to the dogs on the W platform has enabled, I'm sure, a lot of people out west to understand better what these crazy coon hunters out here in the East are all about, And likewise, when they may be on there and listening to Gone to the Dogs, and then they get to see Born 100 Years Too Soon, or late, too late, with Brett Vaughn, and then, and so then it brings it all together. And I don't know, it's the community. Of course, communication is it's crazy anymore, and it was never anything like that was possible. But I will say that there was a large community of people from East and West that took Full Cry magazine every month and got that taste of Oak Corey and these other writers from the West. Dale Cameron and people like that, that brought that element to us, and we got to read the stories about Dale Lee and the Lee brothers.
And equally, not to cut you off, but the dogs that came out here, a lot of them wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for, and I'm not plugging Full Cry, sorry, buddy. But the fact is, you think back in those times, where were all those dogs coming from? They were getting bought in classified ads. They were this and they were that. So don't ever forget, like, most of these big game dogs, they all go back to that same stuff. You got your, Hickory Nut Harry, your big name walker dogs. I can't even go into them because we'll start a war.
Finley River Chief, he was the Nance bred dogs, all of that,
Right.
But
they all kind of came out. That's where a lot of these big game dogs started. So to see it kind of come full circle and hear that the coon guys, I would have never imagined that they would really be interested in big game hunting,
Well, the Plot breed, it kind of came full circle because it was not until guys like Dale Brandenburger went out in the 40s and bought some dogs out of North Carolina and brought them to the Midwest and started hearing this name comes up again. But people, if I don't want to go there. Let me sidestep. But anyway, Dale Brandenburger, how did he promote the Plot breed, and how was he known as the number one Plot breeder in the country? And how did he, some sources say, sold upwards of 6,000 puppies?
Whoa.
He was in Full Cry magazine every single month from the 40s up until sometime in the 90s, I guess. That's how you guys say, I want to promote my breed. Well, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
And other guys will say, well, that's just bragging on your dogs. You shouldn't. How else do you promote a breed? How else do you promote, without putting it out there and showing people what you got,
It's a balance, though.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to be, you can be proud without being prideful. You can have a big name without thinking you have a big name. Mm-hmm. And, you have to nobody will know. The best dog out there might never get seen. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I still believe that. And I
always said, and we used to joke about it, I'd like to see our next world champion be led in here for pictures by a kid in a pair of bib overalls with a piece of baler twine tied to the dog's collar.
Right? Just off the farm.
Yeah.
So through all the years, though, I mean, I know you aren't that kind of person that brags about it, but there has to be some very special experiences or projects, with all the hunts that you were instrumental in and the registry programs and all that. What to you was something that stood out as personal fulfillment, something that meant the most to you and seeing it succeed, or something you learned from a failure?
Mm-hmm. Well, I could kind of just lay out my strategy. When I took the job at UKC as field operations manager, I knew right then that all these night hunts, and there were a lot of clubs, and and UKC in 1983 was doing very well, and it continued to grow over the next 10 years exponentially. It just really did. And the strategy was, I think, to present quality events. By that I mean when someone comes and invests a weekend or a week of vacation in some time, to have everything looking sharp. I'd laugh at myself the number of mornings on Sunday that I walked through the barns at Autumn Oaks, because back then we had we had an awards presentation Sunday morning, and then we had a show later. How many times I walked through the barns picking up spit cups, white styrofoam spit cups off all the bleachers and any of the tables and anything else. And if there's anything that I hate worse
that's
than a
horrible.
spit cup, I don't know what it is. It's to step in dog manure and track it into my truck. Now that might be worse. But
I don't know, man. I don't know.
I hated spit cups, especially when they turned them over onto my nice tablecloths.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, just the details, the old saying, devil's in the details, but we wanted to build. To me, I first from the old school, if you're green, you're growing. If you're ripe, you're rotten, so to try to build. And one of the things that I'm very proud of is that we did build the UKC World Championship program. We did build the Purina Points race for the outstanding coonhound. We hit numbers that we never thought were possible. And then from there, we knew we needed an event in the South. We built the Winter Classic, and then we built the bench show, the World Bench Show, which had become a big deal now. A lot of people, especially the women, have really taken over the showing into things. So that was very, very gratifying to me. The American Heritage Hunt in Texas, and I think it's probably gone away now, but it was that was a very, you talk about proud moment for me, right at the end of Desert Storm, and having a big rodeo arena with coon hunters mounted on mules with their dogs, and chuck wagons, and rodeo grand entry parade, and Lee Greenwood on the PA system singing "Proud to be an American."
It's like a truck pull,
and all it is like, whoa, that was a trip. And I've talked about these things before. Going to AKC and having a national championship at Greensburg, Indiana, and having a brand new Chevrolet Remington Edition pickup truck worth about $80,000 sitting up on a trailer, on a semi-trailer in the headquarters building to give away to our national champion.
That's pretty cool.
That was a rush.
That is pretty cool.
It was cool. It had Remington shotgun shells as the centers of the dials on your speedometer and tachometer.
Oh, really?
And embroidered into the seats. And to top that, asking the crowd to walk outside and look up into that blue Hoosier sky and see a skydiver with a huge American flag jump out of a plane and come sailing around and round and round and landing right in the fairgrounds parking lot.
That's cool.
Those kind of things, man. And those were all highlights, moments that I really enjoyed. PKC, one of my fondest memories of PKC is working with the kids and having the youth hunters come for their world championship and having them all march in with their dogs and calling their name and calling the dog's name and the amount of money they'd won, and having George Strait on the PA system singing, "Dad, this may be the best day of my life."
Making eyes leak everywhere, right?
Oh, man. Parents up there, big grins, flashball or phones popping.
Yeah,
so
phones now.
There were so many highlights like that down through the years. But I guess going, I pick my. It's like things we do with our family or hunting trips we've taken or favorite dogs that we've had or whatever. We go back and like to remember the ones, that were special to us. I remember, so many things like that, world championship final cast that I got to walk along on and be there when that dog won that world championship, and then to go and follow them back into the headquarters and be able to be there and take the picture of them with their trophies and see the happiness on their faces. And now for an old guy to be able to look back and say, "Yeah, I was there. I remember that. I remember exactly what that was all about."
That's what blows me and Heath's mind. We were talking about that last time. Is you remember these hunts like. You got the video playing in your head, like, exactly down to the T, how the thing was scored. It's wild. It just shows to me, like, there are people out there, I feel like, that are hound enthusiasts. And then there are people that are just ate up with it. It's every bit of every ounce of their being. And, you've been involved for so long.
I'll confess something. When it comes to that, those events and all of that, I've got, almost instant recall. But when it comes to the hunts and trying to remember exactly what we did on a given hunt, like just a pleasure hunt that we took last week, my dad was a master at that. He could give you a play-by-play that didn't miss. I joking say he would tell you not only which, that there was moss on the tree that bear was on, but which side of the tree the moss was on. But, it's always been important to me, Jason, and I guess anything advice out there to our listeners is find something you love to do and then immerse yourself in it. Experience as much as you can of it and record it to memory. Yeah, that's important, but it'll come back to you. Believe me, as you get older, those old stories come back. But, find something you really love to do and then just, go for it, man. And I guess that's been my story. I loved coon hunting from the time I can remember the first trip, and I loved the dogs, and I got a silly old 7-month-old pup here in the house. Now, where does a coon hound need to be? Not in a house in a retirement community in Florida. But I got one because he's a coon hound, and that's what I am. So. But I have a wonderful wife that agrees with me about that.
I will agree with you there. You're lucky, man.
There. My mother would not have stood for it, believe me.
I'll just fill out the permission request for borrowing Steve for Grand American next year and make sure my people get a hold of her people, and we'll get you out of there on vacation.
Oh, she calls that me time. She's glad to see me go to these events and stuff because she gets to do what she wants. Not that I ever tell her what to do. Please, let's clarify that. Okay.
Good news is she doesn't listen to these, right?
Exactly. Wouldn't on a bet.
Well, so, speaking of the puppy, that's the one you had at Winter Classic, right?
Yeah.
Ghost,
yeah.
So, as you've gone kind of through this path and journey you're still on, you're still super involved in several aspects between you keeping your social media, your podcast, but really like you got a quad grand coon dog right now too, like that you're promoting, and you've got another puppy. And have you owned or co-owned dogs a lot over the years?
No.
Or is this like a new kind of venture for you?
My partner, Mark Miller, is a rare find. He really is. And, he's a houndsman and takes care of a dog, understands. He told me the other day, he said, Fever's limping again. I don't know what the deal is. We had this one time before with him. He said, I've got an appointment with the vet for him. And he hunts in this rocky, rough stuff. He's probably got a bruise or something, But
sure.
You had me on a track there, and I was going to really have something brilliant to say, and I've forgotten it now.
Sorry,
but to be able to stay involved, with the sport when the legs are not there anymore is a real challenge. And but when you have a pup, and it's a well-bred pup, and you've seen early signs that this pup has a lot of potential, you can't just let that pup go to waste. You can't just put him on the couch and say, well, I knew you would have been a great one. I still have that down inside that I want to see what this pup's got. I want to see how far he can go.
Sure.
And of course, Mark and I are still partners, so I've got high hopes that when he goes up to Mark, that good things will happen. But we never know that for sure. Right. But what you kind of led me down a path there, and I got off of it. Right, but there was something I wanted to say, and I guess it was probably more to the listeners out there, that I had this experience here just this week. I knew of a pup for sale. I knew that the young man that bought this puppy had high hopes that he was going to be able to become a coon hunter. He had never been a coon hunter before. And he found out that it was difficult to do it as a rank amateur or novice.
Sure.
And seeing that he wasn't doing the dog justice, he said, I'm going to let the dog go, but I want to be sure that the person I let it go to is going to give the dog the chance that I wish that I could have. And I got to respect that. I really admire that in this young man. Yeah. And in fact, another situation arose out of that, whereas another young man was very interested in this dog and wanted it really bad. But the original owner says, you are in the same boat that I was in, and you have little or experience, and therefore, I'm not going to make the same mistake with this dog twice. I'm going to find somebody, that really, and that was tough on the guy that wanted the puppy. And he was discouraged, and he says, I'm really discouraged that people won't give me a chance. And so there's that element. But as Fred Moran and I were just talking recently on a podcast, I think it'll air the same week this one does, is that what we need in this sport is mentors. We need people that will take these young people, because it's tough, man. If you don't have places to go, you don't know really much about the sport, but you just know enough to know that you love the hounds. You find it exciting being out at night with the hounds or daytime. And you want to do it all, but you can't put the pieces all together. And that's where we need, people to step up and say, hey, buddy, I'll help you out. I'm not doing anything on Friday nights. let's go. I've got a spot out here outside of town. We can take your pup. Or whatever, in any way, if we could just mobilize an army of
Right.
mentors out there, it could turn our sport around. It really could. But it's tough for a young guy to start out now. Where I had, a great mentor. I had, the best you can have in a couple of ways. He was a great houndsman, but he was my dad.
Yeah.
And he taught me one way or the other.
Right.
So,
but that's the truth though. And I can tell you, I wouldn't be here today. Like, I was just living life and I was young. I got into dogs when I was 21, 22, maybe. I don't know, somewhere right in there. But, it was because I was around some people that just got me into it. And then you start making relationships with people and you start networking. And next thing you know, it's like you've got this whole group of people out there that if I really got questions, like if I got questions on dogs, there's a short list, but there is a list because I will ask people. And I think that the novice houndsman should ask questions respectfully. I think the biggest issue that a novice houndsman makes is they want to just ask a question. They'll ask 100 questions, but then there is no thought process behind it. And you got to realize when you're asking somebody for their hard-earned knowledge, they have it for a reason. They're taking time out of their day and trying to invest. I mean, really, every time you respond, that's an investment in somebody. Whether they agree with you or not, at least consider it. If you're going to take the time to ask and get an answer back, I would strongly encourage, ponder it. And it may not mean anything to you now, but I will tell you, there are things back when I first started that did not make any sense. Now makes total sense or has totally different meaning. That's what they were really talking about.
Yeah. And the frustrating thing to people that may have the knowledge that would be able to help this young person or novice person is for them to answer to the best of the ability all these questions and all these in those phone calls and all these things. And then to have that person, basically just blow it off and say, well, now I know it all and here I go. Mm-hmm. And it's frustrating. So a guy said, well, I'm not going to put myself through that again,
Yep.
But we all have to be patient and we have to, I've been that guy when I was young and man, I had my Carhartts and my Bill Boatman flashlight and I knew what was going on, man. And some kid would show up, you could tell he didn't know anything. He asked dumb questions, and I thought, boy, you sure don't know much. Yeah, we can't. We all started somewhere, and believe me, I grew up with a teacher. My dad was teaching me something all the time.
Yeah, and
he was quick to tell me, hey, that's not the way that works. You need to do that this way, but he did it with love. My dad was never abusive to me in any way, verbally or otherwise.
Yeah.
But, if we could just make that combination, work, if you could get these older guys now that have more time with the younger guys that really seriously want to learn, and get them together and get them to but it's a tough one because the ego factor that all of us males have, right away, you join a coon club, you want to get a group, you join a group of hunters, bear hunters or coyote hunters, whatever. And right away, you can't resist the urge to tell them how they ought to do things. And they're looking at you like, man, as what they used to say back in my day, you're wet behind the ears, kid. You're still wet behind the ears.
You can build some pretty awesome relationships, though, based around around these dogs. I know I have several in my life that's the only common factor is we just met through dogs or somehow it was related. And some of those, I mean, are the biggest parts of my life still, like in all aspects. You think about you and Nubbins. How long have you guys been hunting together?
Well, it started back when he was a field rep for UKC. And he did that for many years. And that's when I first met Nubbin was at the 25th anniversary of Autumn Oaks in Jasper, Indiana. And he came up there with a black and tan of all things and won the whole thing. And so that's when I first met Nubbin. And he and I just kind of seemed to get, don't get me wrong. I mean, sometimes we can't stand each other.
You're hitting my point right on the head right here. Keep going.
Yeah. But, it's, but I told him the other day, it was his birthday. When I got through, we got talking back and forth, 84 years old. I had to tell him I loved him.
Yep.
And that's something that when I was a kid, you'd never hear a man tell another man, We didn't even know what those guys that were lighting their loafers were all about.
You from California.
That's right.
It's true, though.
Homie didn't play that over there in the coal mines. But anyway,
it's true, though.
No, but he and I have been just great friends. And I still love his stories. I prime him to tell me stories when we're riding down the highway,
He's a great storyteller.
We're talking today he's talking about fishing and turkey hunting. He's wanting me to try to find him a place to come turkey hunting down here. But, I just wish, they say you wish in one hand and you know what in the other and see what fills up the fast. But I just wish the younger people would listen to what the older people have to say without just writing it all off as being some old fogey. That was a term when I was a kid. He's an old fogey. And I also wish that the older people would be more patient with the young people and that they would take more time to share with them and tell them their stories. And, that would, I'm always believing that we'd have a lot better coon clubs and all if we just had a story night and you have everybody come around and sit around and get a good cup of coffee and stoke up the fire and tell me a good hunting story,
I agree.
And exchange them. That's the core of the sport and what we do. But we got the Facebook where we can get on there and brag. And, of course, I've done my share of bragging on this plot dog. God only knows I have. But I'm going to go back to my example of Dale Brandenburger of buying that ad every month in that magazine. And what was he doing? Bragging on those pioneer plots and putting them up for stud and showing their pictures and all that. That was promoting. That's what I'm going to do as long as I'm able.
Wow.
and if the people don't like it, just scroll on by.
Keep on scrolling. I know it was because we've only had, full cry almost 2 years, Danny and I. Mm-hmm. And when he was going to hit all grand, I was already contacting Mark. I'm like, I want to run an ad. Like, I want to do this. We were talking about that before it ever happened. Because I'm like, to see it in print, I'm like, this is really cool. Look at all the years you've invested. And then I get to put your dog in there as an all grand. I'm like, this is pretty freaking cool.
I never owned an all grand dog before, and I wouldn't have half ownership in one now if it wasn't for Mark Miller. No. I mean, he was the guy that did the work, and All thanks go to him, and a real good dog, though. I'll have to give Bill Shinniger kudos for breeding that dog because, and I had a little bit to do with that too. I have to slide that in there. But all of that is part of who would Joe House be? Who would James Merchant be? Who would John Monroe be? If they hadn't put ads in the magazines? Mm-hmm. Who would Frank Giddings be up in Michigan? Who's Sackett Jr.? Who ever heard of him? These guys put them out there for the public to see. And that's where a lot of people, I think, are missing the boat. But I think this instant gratification society thing has hurt us a lot in our dogs because everybody wants to have a wonder working pup. You know, they want one that walks on water and talks on TV at 6 months old. And if he doesn't do that, then let's move him on down the line, boy. Let's get the next one, you know.
Yeah. It's different. It's different now. And that's where, like, listening to the guys that have been doing it for so much longer, I'm not going to say it's all right. Like, I've heard lots of advice from guys that isn't going to be right for me. But again, if you as the asker can really think about it and then make your decision, you said it earlier, make sure you're right and then go on.
Go ahead. That's my grandmother's advice.
Think about that. And on the other side, because I'm kind of in the middle, right? Like, I'm not a novice, I wouldn't say, but I'm an enthusiast, right? Like, I'm not some guy that can go out and make a bunch of puppies. Like,
I was never that guy either.
I just enjoy it.
Jason. Yeah. And that's the core right there. As I said earlier, find something you enjoy. And if this is it, then go for it, man. But there's so many things we can share with each other. You know, training pups, mistakes I've made that I wish, you know, I look at a dog and I say, I know I made that dog that way. That was all on me. That dog wasn't headed that direction until I sent him that way. Mm-hmm. And I think, now I don't want to make that mistake again, you know. And so experience is a tremendous teacher. But if you can find somebody that's already been down that road and can tell you, hey, boy, don't do it that way. Do this. Try this. And if you trust that person, you have faith in them, you can save a lot of trouble.
I think a lot you can. I think some of it, honestly, Steve, like I said, being in the middle, I think as a novice, sometimes there is no way for you to comprehend what they are really trying to say. You can't. Yeah. How do you know unless you've been taught kind of situation? Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of it you can soak in, but there are elements to what we do that the only way you're going to unlock that is personally, you know, some of that. Well, surround yourself with guys that'll help you get to that point.
You want to be a bear hunter, okay? You get out there, you got a nice dog box and a rig box, you got a truck full of hounds.
You got 12 dogs, not one, 12.
Yeah. And you go up the road there and the trucks are all stopped there and they're looking down over the bank and they look up here on the other side and you can see where the bear slid down the bank and he's gone. We know he's going downhill. Okay, we know this. All right. Now, the experienced bear hunter in the group is going to say, okay, I'm going to take old Joe and I'm going to put him on a leash and I'm going to walk this track out a ways here. We know it's headed this way, but just to be sure, I want to walk it out a ways and see. And if I get an indication from him that he can take this track and all, I'll let you know and we can turn old Sue loose and whatever. And we'll start this thing the right way and we'll build it just like we're building a house. We'll build this bear track and result hopefully in a bear in a tree. But the guy in the pickup truck with the 12 dogs, his mentality is, dump the box. There's a bear track.
Back up to the edge and open the doors.
And what happens? at least 6 of those 12 is going to go up the hill,
Mm-hmm.
and the other 6 are going to go down the hill, and or maybe, and then take. Some of those are going to find a deer track around here to take.
They got dogs everywhere. That's how you learn country, Steve. You just dump the box and you're going to learn everything around it.
Oh yeah. Well, we got a Garmin, right? We can gather them up.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, but I did it before Garmin. That's the thing is I got him right there at the tail end, where it's like. Danny put it best. She says, "You guys aren't bear hunting. You're hunting dogs. Like you just turn loose on these things, and then you spend 2 days looking for a dog." I don't know how many times I was terrified I wouldn't make it into work the next morning. And then Garmin came along, and I will tell you that first year in California, before they legalized it, there was a gap, right? Like 2012 was our last bear season, and then GPS became legal after that. I'm going to tell you. The value of having that Garmin would have been worth any fine or citation. Like chasing that country and walking into a beep. I'll never forget the guy that kind of got me started and really introduced me to bear camp and all that. He says, "Doobie, you've got it." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He says, "I can't explain it, but you got it." And I'll never forget, I was getting ready to walk down this road. Like I can put myself where my boots were standing in that moment. And I was walking in to go get my dog Thumper that I had bought. He was the first dog I bought to get started. And it's just kind of over the years, it's a joke, between me and Danny now, because we've grown in this whole thing together. And I'm like, I'm still trying to figure out what it is, but some days I wish I didn't have it. Like it's this, one or the other, man. You're so thankful you got it because there's no way I could get out of what we do. I will be involved in this to some degree at all times.
My mother used to say, "This is born and bred in you, Steve. It'll never come out."
Right?
You're
dyed in the wool. Is that what they call it?
That's right. But aren't we glad that we chose this path in life, Jason? I mean, think about all the different things we could be doing. And some of them are honorable things, but, I have no regrets. I would absolutely, if I had it to do over, I would choose the very same path. I would have done some things differently for sure.
Yeah.
But, yeah. You asked me about my best accomplishment over the years. I think was building Coonhound Bloodlines from 3,000 subscribers to almost 30,000 at one time. Was probably one of the biggest and most enjoyable journeys, going to AKC and seeing the fancy AKC Gazette jam-packed in the back in the event listing with coonhound events when there had never been any before. Mm-hmm. That was a trip. Seeing all 6 of our coonhound breeds, that was the days before the leopards.
Leopards.
accepted into the big, important, and it is important, AKC, and seeing the people that are into that sort of thing getting to show their coonhounds at Westminster and having
That's why I'm here, Steve.
Huh?
Like, if you think about it, we got a blue tick. I bought Thumper, and I got a puppy from my buddy Jess that was Cameron blue tick and Findlay River bred Walker. And then we bought a purebred blue tick because they were a utility in AKC and we wanted to get in on the ground floor. Mm-hmm. Fast forward a couple years, in 2014, we had 3 of the top 10 dogs in the conformation ring in the nation. Awesome. Had the number 1 all systems blue tick, Westminster, Eukanuba. We went to all of them. And who would have ever thought? And now, like, we're sitting here like, I don't know whose dream this is because we would have never even you could throw a dart blind and would have never picked our life would be the way it is. And me at W for this long. And it's just been such a blessing in general. Like in Danny's book, she did a little, precursor, and I'm going to butcher the actual wording on it, but it basically said, make sure you follow your dogs, and they'll take you places your imagination couldn't take you. It's all because we decided to follow a calling and a lifestyle, and I don't know. People grow people, in my opinion, and you surround yourself with those people in our sport. And it's been amazing just in the short time relevantly that I've been involved. I've enjoyed it immensely.
Well, we all have our own goals in life and things that we would like to accomplish. And we can say, if I can do that, then I feel like my life is, number one, turn your life over to God. That's you got to get that straightened out before you do anything else. That's number one. And of course, take care of your family. Be the man your family needs you to be. But, I look back, I hear a little kid, grows up in a little coal mining area there in West Virginia. The secretary of the Coon Club, my big job was to put the little 1-inch classified ad in the newspaper. It said wild coon hunt Saturday night, And then fast forward, I'm standing in Madison Square Garden in New York City doing seminars on coon hounds for a judge. Now, how do you get from point A to point B? I don't know how.
That's how.
That's it. That's it. But, it's been a wild ride. It's been a great ride. And I'm going to try to keep hanging on to it. And I'm not trying to blow your head up here either, Jason. But if you did give me the chance to do this and continue these podcasts and stuff, I guess I'd be like John the Baptist. I'd be a voice crying in the wilderness. Nobody know that I'm even still around. So I'm thankful for that opportunity, I tell you.
Well, I'm glad that you are, and I'm really glad, Colby. I guess I'm talking to the listeners now. I've been zoned out talking to you, but we've all kind of been in talks and emails and whatever we can all do to make sure that, this thing stays successful. So Colby, and I've mentioned him before, but I don't know if I've ever really introduced him to some of the audience. He's
good guy,
owner and editor over at Bear Hunting Magazine. Since Clay Newcomb went on to Meat Eater.
I always remember him as Colby the Bear Tech.
Yeah, the Bear Tech, exactly. So he's doing all the podcast editing for us. And, we've got things lined up so that these podcasts are just going to keep rolling, just like I'm not here. I mean, literally and figuratively. And I'm excited because now it's funny. I was telling Danny this the other night. I said, I've gotten to a point I can't even listen to all of them because, when you work on phones here, obviously I'm on phones a lot. And then you've got, kids and Collins and shooting club, and we've got Kung Fu and God knows what else, horseback riding. I said, I haven't had time, but it's in my crazy midlife crisis escape to the wilderness. I don't know what else to call it, but I'm this is going to be so different. This is a big change for our family.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to being able, I got 2 hours to drive off that mountain twice a week all by myself. I'm excited to have some time to get back and listen and catch up on some of these.
Well, hopefully we can get something pretty interesting for you. You'll find this interesting. I'm sure I told Nubbin today that you were going to be leaving you. And at first thing out of his mouth, well, what about your podcast? What's going to happen to your podcast? I said, well, I think it's all taken care of, Nubbin. It's going to go right on as usual.
Yes, sir.
At least I'm hopeful that that's the case. And, well, on behalf of all of the listeners out there and everybody that's ever been a customer of yours, Jason, I know that I can speak for them in saying you've been a great help to a great number of people.
Thank you.
And you have made friends all across this country, and I'm sure around the world, through your attitude toward people and toward customer service. I was never ashamed when I talked about the sponsor for my podcast being W Hunting Supply, to talk about the customer service, because I really do believe it has been and continues to be second to none. And I know there are good companies out there, and I'm not going to name them. They know who they are. There are good companies out
and we're
there.
all buddies, believe it or not, for the most part.
That's right. And but you've been there for us. You've helped us. We're going to miss you when it comes time to tell me, what the heck is this Garmin doing now? This crazy thing. But you've been there for us, bud, and we're here for you. If we can help you in any way, you and Danny. I'm just so thankful that I got to actually meet Danny and Taylor at Grand American last year. Looking forward to meeting the boys. I'm really looking forward to seeing them. And so we just want to wish you the very, very best.
Well, thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. And I'm not going to be a stranger, you know. It's like I said, it's a very different thing for me. I've never been in this point in my life. And this jump is really, it's a leap of faith. Yeah,
well, I'd really like to get a commitment from you that you'll come on with me a little later on once you've gotten in the saddle, got your feet wet, literally and figuratively.
Absolutely.
And come on and tell us all about the new gig and how it's going and what you're doing. And, you know, Elon Musk is going to require you to list 5 things that you do every day, you know.
You know, I hope I got some good stories. It's going to be like, you know, moving off grid with the dogs. It's not like we're just going for a week of hunting. Yeah. I've got to worry about odor control, waste removal, containment, you know, charging, all of these things. So I'm hoping, you know, I'll have some good stories to tell, and I'm going to do some writing too. And I would be tickled to come back on, man, anytime.
Well, I can see it with Danny's editorial skills and her creativity and everything. I'm looking for a new, you know, when he's off the grid type magazines, you know.
You never know, Steve.
That's right.
You never know. I have a buddy in California, TJ Bailey. I'm going to give you a shout out. Okay.
Hello,
TJ. TJ in years at this point. I mean, maybe a couple times in the last 2-3 years. But I remember when I came to W, he was one of my plum tree guys, right? And he's like, yeah, you guys are just really interesting. Like, nothing surprises me. And then we bought the magazine, and he calls me and he says, yep, true to form. Like, there is nothing you two would ever do that would surprise me, because you couldn't like I said, throw a dart blind. You couldn't pin that. And now doing this, it's like, yeah, I think some people think we're completely crazy because we're moving all the kids and everything. And like, it's.
But you've prepared for it.
We're ready, man. I'm pumped. I think it's going to be fun, and I'm excited. I don't know. As far as dog content, you know, I'll be doing things with the dogs and having training regimens and endurance stuff that I'll be working on. So I'm hoping to have some insight for some people. Not everybody's going to get this opportunity per se, but to be able to show what you can do with minimal time and minimal resources. You're just down in the wild. You got to make do with what you're doing, and
there
hopefully
sure,
it'll be good. I don't know. I'm excited, and I hope to come back on. I know Buddy had talked to me about maybe coming back on and doing some at some point.
Yeah.
I'd love to come back on.
I hope that happens for sure. And but you're welcome here anytime. And
I will take you
Of course,
up on it.
Buddy might can veto me, but
We'll just run it by him first.
that's right.
We'll have to time it in the wintertime, and then we can just come see you in Florida, and we'll record
There
it
you
there.
go.
And then we'll drive on up to Heath's
The
house.
door's
We'll go
always
bear hunt.
open.
I'll drive. Well, you drive. You're the road king. You can drive that, 300,000 mile Ford?
My brother. I told him we needed to bring some things down here from up at his place. And I said, well, we can just drive right through. He said, no. He said, I can't do that. He said, you're the one with the cast iron kidneys, not me. He said, I can't drive like you. I'd leave here and I'd drive 15, 16 hours straight through to his place,
Right. Hey, you can't get there if you don't drive. You might as well get it all done.
Once I get behind the wheel, I'm good to go. That Ford's got like a 32 or 3 gallon tank. Man, I don't have to stop very often.
No kidding.
Keep rolling, yeah.
Well, I look forward to coming back on with you. I look forward to seeing you. We will obviously stay in touch, and as long as you're willing to come help me with the full cry stuff, you'll be in our booth.
Absolutely. Put me down for next January.
I'll tell Danny get the house
Labor
booked.
Day. Labor Day, man. Labor Day.
That one's gonna be rough.
That's
because I'll be on downriver.
You're into your season then, huh?
I don't know if I'll.
I hope you can make it, but if you can't, well, you get those boys a little more growth there.
Yep.
Stick them. Let's see, Colin, the oldest.
He's 9.
Yeah, he'll be good to go here in another couple years.
We're raising a work staff right now.
We're
getting them in and settled, and then here in a few years they'll be able to take over some stuff.
My mom and dad were both from families of 9 kids. That's the way they did it back then, man. You grow your workforce.
That's what they were. They want to help. They think they got hired too, right? And there's going to be plenty of jobs for them to help, and they know they're helping dad. But I got a message that the owners just ordered 50 chicks, laying chicks, because eggs are $9 a gallon. A gallon a dozen. I don't even know. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It is crazy. It's crazy.
And so, doing the math, it's like, it makes total sense. And I told those kids that, and their eyes got about this big around. They're like, can we take care of the chickens? Because they've been pretty bummed out. We're having to get rid of our livestock.
Well, they're studying lizards now.
Oh, my gosh. You saw that?
Freezing.
I told my wife she's going to make our kids look like psychopaths. They're trying to figure out. Connor decided he wants to be a biologist.
Yeah.
That is his thing. Like, now he wants to study. But he's been reading. I shouldn't say he's been reading. He has been around when we've done like the Colorado issue, and he hears me and Danny talking about like fights in hound hunting and biologists and their role. So now he's pretty fired up about it. He was going to be a game warden until the California experience, and the scary officer, quote unquote, detoured that.
Right.
But now he wants to be this biologist. So he's taking these lizards and trying to experiment if they can swim. Because my argument was, yes, there are lizards that swim. Iguanas swim. Like, it's a thing, right? But Danny had to explain it's warm here. It's cold. And he says, well, I'm just going to warm up the water. I'll dump them in different temperatures of water and see which one they can swim in. And I'm like, oh, God, we're waterboarding lizards. People are going to think he's horrible. He's just a boy, and he's just doing American boy stuff.
Absolutely. I did all that stuff too, man.
Well, keep following. I know you guys, you probably get more info from my wife's Facebook page than anybody.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's great.
Well, we will stay in touch.
All right. Absolutely, buddy. Well, Godspeed. You guys keep us informed what's going on. And when you get off the grid, you're going to be like Green Acres. You're going to have a phone out there on the top of a pole somewhere where you have to climb up to make a call or something.
Yeah, you got to go about 15 miles that way and then to the top of the mountain, and then you could get service.
Yeah, you got cell service.
But Elon will come to our rescue as well.
That's right. We'll Starlink will be right there.
Yeah. Exactly. So you'll get some fishing pictures, hopefully. And
yeah.
I want
That's
some
what
coon
I'm
pictures.
interested in. I want to learn more about that.
We need a swap. We need to get out there for the White River trip.
Oh,
And you gotta figure out. You should come in and do some salmon fishing.
Never done salmon fishing. Did a lot of trout fishing, but never salmon.
It's like that, but better, buddy.
That's what I've heard.
It is. Fishing these rivers for salmon and steelhead is just. I don't know. I love bass fishing. I'm rabbit holing on you now, but I love bass fishing, panfish, yellow perch, bluegill, sunfish. My family is on my dad's side's all from Michigan, and that's just what you fished for.
Yeah.
But gosh darn it, you hook into an 8-10 pound steelhead.
Use like a spey rod and all that. Two-handed deal.
Lamb and glass specials is what we use. And ugly sticks. Ugly sticks. That's like the universal poor man's fishing pole, I think.
I got you. It's like the Zebco 33 when I was a kid.
Yeah,
Everybody
exactly.
had a Zebco.
Well, Steve, I appreciate it. I really wanted, knowing this was my last one, I've been really looking forward to doing it with you because I've always had a lot of questions and you've been very gracious with your time and knowledge.
Well, I hope I didn't talk too much and let you get your questions in. And that's a problem that I have, but it's a cross I'll have to bear, I guess, my listeners.
Keep bearing it. It's doing a lot of good
of
for some people.
Well, I'm glad. Well, Jason, thanks for having me on. It's been a real pleasure.
Anytime, bud.
As always.